The dim, swirling nebula known as the Veil of Unknowable Stars cast an ethereal glow over the royal cruiser Varenia's Grace as it drifted silently through space. Its angular hull shimmered with the distinct luminescence of Zilithian engineering, a tribute to an empire that thrived on elegance as much as power. Inside, Princess Kalira Zarin of the Zilithian Dominion stood in the grand observation chamber, her violet eyes fixed on the churning starlight outside. The chamber itself was an opulent display of her people's mastery of art and technology. Transparent panels lined with embedded crystals flickered faintly, showcasing holographic projections of her ancestors' conquests. Sculptures of Zilithian gods, half organic, half crystalline, framed the walls, their serene faces reflecting the dim lighting. Yet none of this beauty could calm the restlessness in her heart. For days, she had been haunted by the announcement that had rippled through the Dominion. A ceremony was planned to honor the hero who had saved her life when she was just a child, a figure shrouded in mystery, long believed to be a nameless mercenary who vanished shortly after the fateful event. The announcement had dredged up memories she had buried, memories of fire, fear, and a pair of hands carrying her to safety. "Princess, are you well?" A soft voice broke through her reverie. It was Tavares, her chief aide and confidant, a Zilithian male with smooth bronze skin and striking gold markings along his temples, a trait of the ruling caste. "I'm fine, Tavares," Kalira replied, though her voice was tinged with unease. "The preparations for the ceremony, are they proceeding smoothly?" "They are," he said, inclining his head. "The guest of honor, the human commander Ethan Kale, has accepted the invitation and will arrive shortly. Shall I arrange for an escort?" Kalira froze. Her fingers tightened on the railing of the observation chamber. "Hey, human," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, Princess," Tavares confirmed. "It appears he was the one who rescued you during the Rithran uprising. Records were recently decrypted that revealed his identity. He's somewhat renowned among his kind, a skilled officer with a history of daring exploits. A human." Kalira's mind raced as she struggled to reconcile the revelation. It was almost unthinkable. Her people, for all their sophistication, had long viewed humanity as primitive upstarts, a young species that stumbled into interstellar politics barely 2 centuries ago. And yet, one of them had been the reason she was alive today, the reason the Dominion still had its heir. "Bring him to me as soon as he arrives," she said abruptly. "I wish to speak with him before the ceremony." Tavares hesitated, sensing the weight in her tone. "Of course, Your Grace. I'll make the arrangements." As Tavares exited, Kalira turned back to the stars, her chest tightening. Memories began to surface unbidden. The heat of flames licking at her skin, the deafening roar of an explosion, and the strange but steady heartbeat she had clung to as a child. She had never seen the face of her rescuer. Could it truly have been one of them? The human ship arrived hours later, a sleek, utilitarian craft bristling with Earth's distinctive blend of practicality and ruggedness. The moment Ethan Kale stepped off the landing ramp into the gilded halls of the royal palace, whispers rippled through the Zilithian guards and attendants. Humans were rare guests here, and none quite like this. Ethan stood tall, his posture exuding the confidence of someone who had seen far too much to be fazed by grandeur. His dark hair was streaked with silver at the temples, and faint scars etched across his rugged features told stories of battles fought and won. His piercing green eyes scanned his surroundings with a mixture of curiosity and caution. He wore his Earth Alliance dress uniform, a stark contrast to the flowing, intricate robes of the Zilithians, but he carried himself as though he belonged anywhere. 2 guards escorted him to a private audience chamber where Kalira waited. The room was far more subdued than the rest of the palace, with a single crystalline table and 2 chairs. The princess stood as he entered, her posture regal yet hesitant, her violet eyes locked onto his, searching for something. Ethan inclined his head in a respectful nod. "Your Highness," he said, his deep voice steady. "Commander Ethan Cale at your service." Kalira's voice caught in her throat. Seeing him in person, a human, flesh and blood, made the truth feel even stranger. "Commander Cale," she said, her voice carrying the formal cadence of royalty. "I've waited a long time to meet the one who saved my life." Ethan's expression softened, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "I didn't think anyone remembered," he admitted. "It was a long time ago. You were just a child." "Yes," Kalira said, stepping closer. Her gaze never wavered from his. "I don't remember much from that day. Only fragments. But I remember feeling safe because of you." Ethan shifted, his hand brushing the faint scar along his jawline. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," he said gruffly. "Just did what anyone would have done." "That's not true," Kalira countered. Her voice grew firmer, laced with emotion. "You risked your life for me, for someone you didn't even know." The silence between them was heavy, charged with unspoken thoughts. Ethan finally broke it with a small, wry smile. "I guess that's humanity for you, stubborn and reckless, even when it doesn't make sense." For the first time, Kalira smiled back, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Then perhaps we're not so different, Commander Cale. I owe you my life, and I intend to repay that debt." As their gazes held, the lines between species, between royalty and soldier, began to blur. Somewhere in the distance, the stars continued their eternal dance, oblivious to the moment that was quietly reshaping the destinies of 2 very different lives. Chapter 1. The Weight of the Past. The royal gardens of the Varenia's Grace were a marvel even among the stars. A shimmering canopy of energy shields contained a lush expanse of flora from countless worlds, thriving in perfect harmony under carefully calibrated light. The air was rich with the mingled scents of alien blossoms, the sound of gentle water trickling through crystal-clear streams, and the occasional flutter of iridescent insects that glowed faintly in the twilight. Ethan Cale walked slowly behind Princess Kalira, his boots crunching softly on the gravel path. Despite his disciplined demeanor, his thoughts churned with unease. He had expected some recognition for his role in the Rithran uprising, sure, but this level of attention, from royalty no less, was something else entirely. Kalira glanced back at him, her expression unreadable. "You seem uncomfortable, Commander," she said, breaking the silence. Ethan stopped mid-step, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Is it that obvious?" "To me, yes." She tilted her head, her violet eyes narrowing slightly. "You carry yourself with confidence, but I can sense the weight of something unspoken." Ethan exhaled sharply, his hands finding their way to the pockets of his uniform trousers. "You're perceptive, Princess. I'll give you that. Then perhaps you'll indulge my curiosity." She gestured to a bench beneath a towering golden-leaf tree. "Sit with me. Talk to me." Ethan hesitated but ultimately nodded, sitting a respectable distance from her. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his callous fingers brushing the faint scar that ran across his temple, a mark from that very day so many years ago. "I'm not sure where to start," he admitted, his voice low. "The Rithran uprising wasn't a day I like to revisit." "I understand," Kalira said softly, "but I must know." I was so young. My memories are like fragments of a shattered crystal. Tell me what happened." Ethan leaned back, staring at the distant stars through the shimmering energy canopy. Rithra 3 was a powder keg waiting to blow. Your people had only just annexed it, and the locals weren't exactly thrilled about it. The Dominion underestimated how far they'd go to fight back. They detonated their own cities, Kalira murmured, her voice heavy with memory. He nodded grimly. Suicide bombings, sabotage, you name it. I was there with a small human envoy team, monitoring the situation as part of an Earth Alliance observation agreement. When the first bombs went off, all hell broke loose. Ethan paused, his jaw tightening. He hadn't spoken about that day in years, but something in Kalira's gaze compelled him to continue. "Your convoy was caught in the crossfire," he said, his voice rough. "My team was pinned down not far from where you were. The Rithrans had laid traps everywhere, turning the city into a death maze. By the time we got to your vehicle, it was already in flames." Kalira's breath hitched, but she said nothing, letting him continue. "There were so many bodies," Ethan said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I almost didn't see you, but then I heard it, a cry, faint, almost drowned out by the chaos. I followed it and found you. You were hiding under the wreckage." He closed his eyes, the memory still vivid. "You were scared out of your mind, covered in soot and blood. But when I reached for you, you grabbed onto me like your life depended on it. And it did." Kalira's hand instinctively went to her chest, as though she could feel the echoes of that long-ago terror. "I remember the fire, the sound of the bombs. You passed out not long after," Ethan continued. "I carried you out of there, but we didn't get far before we were ambushed. I took a hit." He touched the scar on his temple. "Nearly didn't make it myself, but somehow we got through." "You saved me," Kalira whispered, her voice trembling, "when no one else could." "I wasn't thinking about heroics," Ethan said, his tone wry. "I just couldn't leave you behind. I couldn't live with myself if I had." Silence fell between them, heavy with the weight of shared memory. Kalira looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, not just as a human or a soldier, but as a man who had shaped her very existence. "You never told anyone?" she asked, breaking the silence. Ethan shook his head. No one cared who did what back then. All they saw was another dead colony and another failed operation. "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters to me," Kalira said firmly. Her voice was resolute now, her earlier hesitation gone. "You gave me a future. You gave my people a future." Ethan met her gaze, startled by the intensity in her tone. "I was just doing my job, and yet you did what no one else could," Kalira countered. Her violet eyes gleamed, her expression fierce. "Humans are surprising. I never thought your kind were capable of such courage." Ethan chuckled softly, the sound tinged with irony. "We're not all reckless fools, but we do have a knack for sticking our necks out when we shouldn't." Kalira's lips curved into a faint smile. "Perhaps that recklessness is why you're here now, and why I'm here at all." As the evening deepened, the tension between them began to ease. Their conversation shifted to lighter topics. Earth's strange customs, the Zilithian obsession with aesthetics, and the unexpected similarities between their species. But beneath the surface, a deeper connection was forming. Kalira found herself drawn to Ethan's honesty, his unflinching bravery, and his quiet humility. And Ethan, in turn, was captivated by the princess's strength, her curiosity, and the vulnerability she allowed herself to show. Neither of them realized that their lives, so different, yet now irrevocably intertwined, were on the brink of a greater journey, one that would test their bond and force them to confront the very boundaries of their worlds. In the quiet hum of the garden, under the watchful gaze of the stars, an alliance was forged, not just between human and Zilithian, but between two souls destined to change the galaxy. Chapter 2: The Web of Shadows. 2 days later, the royal palace buzzed with anticipation. The grand hall of the Zilithian Dominion, a massive chamber built from obsidian-like material shot through with veins of living crystal, was the venue for the official ceremony. Hundreds of dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered under the chamber's domed ceiling, which projected a holographic replica of the surrounding stars. Lush carpets of iridescent fabric stretched down the hall, leading to a dais where Princess Kalyra would bestow the Dominion's highest honor upon Commander Ethan Kale. Ethan, for his part, stood at the fringes of the hall, looking as out of place as a wrench in a jewelry box. His Earth Alliance uniform, though crisply pressed, was painfully utilitarian compared to the flowing robes and shimmering garments of the Zilithian nobility. Yet he stood tall, his green eyes scanning the opulent surroundings with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Commander," a familiar voice called softly. He turned to see Kalyra approaching, her long gown of silvery fabric rippling like liquid starlight. Her violet eyes held a warmth he hadn't expected, and for a moment he forgot the grandeur around him. "Princess," he said, inclining his head, "you look stunning." Kalyra allowed herself a small smile. "You clean up well, too, though you do stand out among my people." "Yeah, I noticed," Ethan replied, his tone dry. "I'm guessing I'm not exactly the guest of the season." Her expression turned serious. "It's not that. The Zilithian Dominion has long viewed humanity with skepticism. Our history is one of superiority, and your people challenge that perception. Tonight is more than a ceremony, Ethan. It's a statement." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "A statement?" "That humanity has earned its place among the stars," Kalyra said firmly, "and that we, as a people, must acknowledge it. You represent more than yourself, Commander." Ethan exhaled, his lips quirking in a rueful smile. "No pressure, huh?" Before Kalyra could respond, Tavares approached, his expression tense. "Your Grace, Commander Kale," he said with a slight bow. "I must speak with you both." In private, Kalyra frowned. "Tavares, what's wrong?" "There's been an incident," Tavares said, his voice low. "Our intelligence operatives intercepted communications indicating a potential threat to tonight's ceremony. The Rithran separatists have resurfaced." Ethan's posture stiffened. "The Rithrans? I thought the Dominion crushed their rebellion years ago." "Most of it," Tavares said grimly. "But a faction survived, operating in the shadows. We believe they intend to sabotage tonight's event, perhaps even attempt an assassination." Kalyra's face hardened, her regal composure replaced with steel resolve. "Do we know the specifics of their plan?" "Not yet," Tavares admitted, "but we've increased security throughout the palace." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "If you've intercepted communications, they know you're onto them. They'll adapt." "Exactly," Kalyra said. She turned to Ethan, her gaze steady. "I won't cancel the ceremony. To do so would show weakness, and the Dominion cannot afford that. But I want you at my side tonight." Ethan hesitated. "You sure about that?" "I'm a soldier, not a bodyguard. You're the only one I trust with this," Kalyra said, her voice soft but resolute. "You saved my life once. I believe you can do it again." The ceremony began with all the pomp and grandeur the Zilithians were known for. Music filled the grand hall, an intricate blend of ethereal chimes and deep, resonant tones that seemed to echo in the listener's very bones. Dignitaries from dozens of species lined the hall, their whispered conversations adding an undercurrent of tension to the evening. Ethan stood just behind Kalira as she ascended the dais, her every movement graceful and deliberate. His eyes swept the crowd, his soldiers' instincts on high alert. Despite the elaborate pageantry, something felt off, the kind of quiet unease he'd learned to trust in war zones. Kalira addressed the assembly, her voice clear and commanding. "Tonight, we honor a hero, a man who risked his life to save not only me, but the future of the Dominion itself. In doing so, he exemplified the courage and selflessness that transcend the boundaries of species and culture. Commander Ethan Kale, please step forward." Ethan approached the dais, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The murmurs among the crowd grew louder as he ascended the steps, standing beside Kalira. She turned to him, holding a gleaming medallion of living crystal, its surface swirling with faint, internal light. "In recognition of your valor, I present you with the Star of Zalith, a symbol of our eternal gratitude." She draped the medallion around his neck, her fingers brushing his shoulder. The applause that followed was polite but muted, more out of obligation than enthusiasm. Ethan could feel the eyes of the crowd boring into him, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and disdain. He straightened, his expression calm, but his gut told him the night wasn't over yet. It happened as the applause faded. A faint hum, almost imperceptible, grew steadily louder. Ethan's eyes darted to the source. A small drone weaving through the crowd, its sleek, black chassis almost invisible against the dark walls. His instincts screamed danger. "Get down!" he barked, lunging for Kalira. The drone's concealed weapon activated in the same instant, a bright energy beam slicing through the air where Kalira had stood moments before. Ethan tackled her to the ground, shielding her with his body as chaos erupted in the hall. Guards surged forward, weapons drawn, but more drones emerged from hidden alcoves, firing indiscriminately. Screams filled the air as dignitaries scrambled for cover. Ethan rolled to his feet, dragging Kalira behind the cover of the dais. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice cutting through the din. He drew his sidearm, a compact plasma pistol, and fired, the sharp cracks of his shots contrasting with the whine of the drone's weapons. His aim was precise, each shot striking true and reducing a drone to smoking debris. Kalira watched him in awe, her heart pounding. He moved with the precision of a seasoned warrior, his every action calculated and efficient. "Tavares," she shouted into her communicator. "What's happening?" "The palace is under attack." Tavares's voice crackled back. "We're trying to secure the upper levels, but the separatists must have infiltrated our systems. They've overridden our defenses." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We need to move." "They're targeting you, Princess." Kalira nodded, her fear giving way to determination. "Lead the way, Commander." As they fought their way through the chaos, side by side, Kalira realized something profound. Ethan Kale wasn't just a hero of her past. He was her shield in the present, and perhaps her hope for the future. But the night was far from over, and the true mastermind behind the attack had yet to reveal themselves. Final chapter, A Reckoning Among the Stars. The ornate corridors of the royal palace were a labyrinth of glittering crystal and polished obsidian, but now they echoed with the sounds of battle, shouts, plasma fire, and the relentless hum of drones. Ethan Kale moved with practiced efficiency, his weapon cutting through the attackers as he guided Princess Kalira toward the palace's inner sanctum. The princess followed close behind, her fear tempered by the calm resolve in Ethan's every movement. "We need to secure the command center," Ethan said, his voice clipped as he checked the charge on his plasma pistol. "If they've overridden the palace systems, that's where we'll find whoever's pulling the strings." "I know the way," Kalira said, gesturing to a side corridor. "Follow me." The command center. The entrance to the command center was guarded by Zalithian royal guards, their ornate energy lances glowing faintly. They stood at attention as Kalira and Ethan approached. "Your Grace," one of the guards said, bowing quickly, "the Separatists have infiltrated our main systems. We've been unable to re-establish control. Let us in," Kalira ordered, "and seal the doors behind us." The guards obeyed, the heavy crystalline doors sliding open to reveal the command center. The room was a marvel of Zalithian technology, with holographic displays flickering erratically as the Separatist cyber attack continued to wreak havoc. In the center of the chaos stood Tavares, his face pale as he directed technicians scrambling to counteract the assault. "Your Grace," Tavares exclaimed as they entered. "The Separatists are attempting to disable the palace's energy shielding. If they succeed, the palace will be vulnerable to orbital bombardment." Ethan stepped forward, scanning the room. "What about the drones? How are they controlling them?" Tavares gestured to a flickering display. "They've installed a command node within the palace network. If we can isolate it, we can shut down the drones." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Where's the node?" "It's in the central power core chamber," Tavares admitted, his voice faltering. "But it's a trap. They've fortified the area with automated defenses and combat drones." "Of course they have," Ethan muttered. He turned to Kalira, his green eyes sharp. "Stay here. I'll handle it." Kalira stepped closer, her expression unyielding. "No, this is my palace, my people. I won't hide while you risk your life." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but stopped when he saw the determination in her gaze. He sighed, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Stubborn. Fine, but stay behind me." Kalira nodded, and the two of them prepared to face the heart of the Separatist operation, the final assault. The path to the central power core was littered with debris and the smoldering remains of defeated drones. Ethan led the way, his plasma pistol at the ready. Kalira followed, a compact energy blade in hand, a weapon more ceremonial than practical, but in her grip it radiated purpose. As they approached the chamber, the air grew heavy with the hum of machinery. The central power core was an immense structure of glowing conduits and cascading energy fields, casting an eerie light over the room. At its heart was the Separatist command node, a sleek black device pulsing with malicious energy. Arrayed before the node were more drones, along with several humanoid figures clad in dark, makeshift armor. One of them stepped forward, removing their helmet to reveal the scarred face of a Rithran leader, a woman with burning amber eyes. "So the princess and her pet human come to die together," the leader sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Ethan raised his pistol. "We'll see about that." The leader's lips curled into a grin. "Kill them." The drones surged forward, their weapons firing in unison. Ethan reacted instantly, diving behind a piece of shattered conduit and returning fire with deadly precision. Kalira followed his lead, her energy blade igniting with a sharp hum as she deflected an incoming plasma bolt. "They're flanking," Ethan shouted, firing a burst that sent two drones crashing to the ground. Kalira spun gracefully, her blade cutting through an attacker with surprising skill. As the battle raged, Ethan spotted a console near the command node. "Cover me," he called out, sprinting toward it. Kalira moved to intercept the drones pursuing him, her blade weaving a deadly arc of violet light. Ethan reached the console and began working quickly, his hands flying over the unfamiliar Zilithian interface. Come on, he muttered, bypassing layers of encryption. The node's defenses retaliated, sending surges of energy through the console, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. Behind him, Kalira fought with the ferocity of someone defending more than just her life. She was defending her people, her future. She moved with a dancer's grace, her blade striking down drone after drone. Finally, Ethan's console beeped in triumph. Got it, he shouted, slamming the final command to shut down the node. The drones froze mid-action, their weapons falling silent as their systems powered down. The Rithran leader screamed in fury, charging toward Ethan with a blade of her own. Before Ethan could react, Kalira intercepted her, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The two women fought fiercely, but Kalira's determination gave her the edge. With a final, decisive strike, she disarmed the leader and held her blade to the woman's throat. It's over, Kalira said, her voice cold. Your rebellion ends here. A new understanding. Hours later, the palace was calm once more. The Separatists had been captured or neutralized, and the Dominion systems restored. Ethan and Kalira stood in the gardens, the weight of the night's events heavy on their shoulders. You saved me, Kalira said quietly, her voice breaking the silence. Again, Ethan looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. Seems to be a habit. Kalira stepped closer, her violet eyes meeting his. I thought I understood humanity before tonight, but you've shown me something more. Something I'll never forget. Ethan's expression softened. We're not so different, Princess. Maybe someday, your people will see that too. For a moment, the galaxy's divisions felt small as they stood together under the stars. Two souls from different worlds, bound by shared struggles and an unspoken connection. Someday, Kalira echoed, a promise in her voice.